organizer with the IA. I also serve as an organizer with the Animation Guild, where we've been making great strides to expand the rights of animation workers throughout the United States. Great to be with y'all. I will pass it over to a great leader. Maggie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Maggie, and I've been working as a visual effects artist in post-production in Los Angeles for 20 years with traditional roots in animation. My engagement with union organizing and visual effects began in 2013 when I wrote an article for IndieWire about what it's like to be a visual effects worker in response to the Life of Pi controversy. I recently joined the Visual Effects Union Advisory Council and have been an active and very vocal IATSE union advocate since December of last year. I'm gonna pass on to the next person, Kale.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today. My name is Kale Liakis Gilbert. I work on set as a lead wrangler and occasional alongside Sue. My last full-time show was for Lucasfilm, and so that's who I'm here to represent most recently. And yeah, I've been part of the campaign for a little over 6 months, and you know, have been picking up steam ever since. So you know, happy to share my story with all of you today, and to see what we're gonna accomplish. So, and with that, I will pass it over to Gabby.
Hi, my name is Gabby, any pronouns. I have been working in VFX for a little over 7 years now, mostly as a wrangler, a lead wrangler, mostly TV, long projects. I've been interested in the unionizing efforts for years and have been lucky enough to join the volunteer council for about a year now, and I've had amazing conversations with people, have been taught some amazing things about how to organize and chat with everybody, and we're excited to talk about those things with you. I'd love to pass it on to Miguel.
Thanks, Gabby. Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Miguel J. Torres. I'm a Atlanta area junior data wrangler. I've only been in VFX for about 2 years, a little over, and just been helping out with the organization of the VFX union and learning so much that I never knew that I needed to know over the past several months. And I'm just super excited to be here. And I'll pass it back over to Mark.
Great, thanks, Miguel. So what are our goals, right? Why are we all here? We are here to inspire successful campaigns across the industry, build worker-led organizing campaigns, and establish recognized bargaining units at major studios and large vendors, right? This is about creating a collective bargaining agreement that represents visual effects workers at the studio level, client side, and also at the vendor level. How do we do that, right? It sounds great, but of course, this is something that people have wanted for years, and you know, it's not always obvious, but I think that what makes this campaign different, and this is a key thing we want to talk about right now, is that we're at a pivot point. This is a new era, not only for us, but if you look at the world we're living in, the labor, you know, conversations that are happening across America right now, we are joining a movement. We are part of a larger effort to push forward the rights of workers and you know, take back power from the unlimited control that the employers currently have over us in our place of work. This is something that is particularly stark for us visual effects workers, and we have a number of, you know, I think that this is obvious to many of us, but I think now we've done the empirical research through our surveys, our conversations, all this work that we've been doing to really identify these shared structural priorities for change that we are coming up against, right? You know, healthcare, pension, lack of overtime pay, lack of turnaround protection, lack of meal penalties, lack of respect for the work that we do, which is generating billions of dollars and creating the modern filmmaking industry as we know it. And we believe that visual effects workers, just like any other entertainment worker, is worthy of respect, admiration, and protection, because the work that we're doing is so vital and critical. And if you look at the people working alongside of us who are able to exercise a collective voice in the job and have a seat at the bargaining table, and we see that around America right now, and yet we lack that voice. So our goal is to win it. And I'm excited to share with you that, this is a campaign which now we've seen go into, reaching for levels of fruition, which is unprecedented. Now, this is a method that we have all been training in and putting into execution. It's a successful method which can establish a successful organizing campaign in a matter of weeks. It's grassroots. It's centering the experience of the workers. It's bottom up. This is about one-on-one conversations. This is the core, the building block of our method. This is about you having an opportunity to sit down, with a worker like yourself, someone who has lived that experience and shared it, learn about their experience, center their voice, and then realize that throughout the course of that conversation, there's so much that unites us. As different as we may seem superficially, we are the workers who are, united by these challenges. We would then, seek to, through these one-on-one conversations, asking people, to tell us about their working environment, who they're working alongside of, what conversations are happening, and connecting them. This is through, a grassroots underground method, one-on-one conversations, and we're not organizing through mass meetings. We're not about, having car paintings or, this is about really building power in the workplace in an efficient and strategic way. So then we would ask, 10% of the folks who we're talking to, and that's, if we have a unit basically at a studio of say 100 folks, that's only 10 people, but they would be really trying to meet weekly to come together, learn from VFX advisory council members like the people you're seeing here today, Ben or myself, about how to train in these skills, conduct these conversations in a safe and effective way, be able to assess people's level of union support. And then our goal would be to reach a super majority, an 80% level of near unanimous, overwhelming support through those one-on-one conversations, having directly confirmed to us, and we would be able to explain the process, the campaign, the potential pushback, and the response from the studio, work through people's questions and fears and concerns, and then really be able to educate people about the rights that we do have as private sector employees under the National Labor Relations Act, and the rights that we have as workers in America to form our union and win a collective voice in the job. So this is about building your power so that you can speak with a near unanimous, overwhelming level of support, which gives us the most leverage over the employers, enables us to win victories and real contracts that make practical differences in people's lives. So this is what these people meeting with us today have been doing, right? We're making our first contacts. Many of you in this room, I've probably been, on the receiving end of one of these. We've been reaching out to so many people, but we're, looking to recruit motivated activists who have the time, inclination, and passion, and it's tough. We all know, having worked visual effects for so long, how hard it is to dedicate an hour a time on a Sunday, or even a half an hour to try and find time for an organizing conversation with your colleague. But it's really those small, dedicated pieces of time and energy that you can devote brick by brick, which then has led us to this point of being able to, have significant supermajorities. So we would form the OC, the natural leaders. We would want to have those meetings regularly, and be sharing the lists of our coworkers, crew lists, who's working alongside of them, who haven't we talked to, who knows each other. And then, as we said, in a matter of weeks, we can, depending on the size of the unit and how, much time people have, you can carry that through to a successful supermajority campaign, at which point we will be asking for voluntary recognition from the studios for our unit. And that's what you're going to be seeing very soon. We have had groups of workers who have been engaged in this process for the last several months, and very soon they're going to be, going public with their demands for voluntary recognition. And one of our main goals in calling you all here today was to prepare you for a swarm of solidarity to show support for those folks, because this is truly a pivot point. This is, we've done the talks, we've done the forums, we've done the surveys, we've done our outreach, but now at this point, we are going to be seeing groups of workers just like yourselves making a public demand for recognition with the IATSE for visual effects workers. And so this is the moment when we're asking all of you to be standing as publicly as possible in support for these workers, whether you're an IATSE member yourself and you're talking about people trying to join your brotherhood, reaching out to your colleagues and coworkers, or if you're a visual effects worker who is here to learn how to win this for yourself, this is how you do it. Reaching out to us, talking to us, getting trained in these skills, getting connected with other folks, and then ultimately building that unanimous level of support so that we can have a voice in the job and actually start the conversation that we all know has desperately been needed to have in visual effects for many years, but it should be led by our voice, the voice of the workers who know what we're talking about, who know the challenges that we face. So this is an overview, but this is just my voice, and I think it's be much better if you can hear it from the voice of the workers. So I'm really excited to turn it over here to the amazing members of the VFX Advisory Council who've been leading this campaign and pushing it forward. And I can't say enough superlatives, so I won't even attempt it. So let me pass it over to Gabrielle Levesque.
Hey guys, I want to thank you all for joining us today. My name is Gabrielle Levesque, any pronouns. Like I said, I've worked in VFX on set for over 7 years now, mostly as a data wrangler. I've always been someone who didn't understand why people can only feel good when they harm others unnecessarily, and seeing the way this industry deliberately takes advantage of artists and creatives who express passion for their works and interests always deeply upset me, especially when we're not afforded the same protections as almost every other worker on a project. I had been following any word of unionizing for a few years before I found the Slack in about 2018, 2019. At that time, there were a lot of people who were unhappy and talking about it, but I saw no real plans, so I eventually, I eventually stopped keeping up with the efforts. In the years since, I've worked on a few prestige projects. All of them have left me with lasting psychological and physical pain, something I still deal with to this day. For instance, I've been lied to, told I would get a supervisor title if I supervised a remote unit for a month with no pay bump, then after the fact, was told they couldn't accommodate a title change. I'm also underpaid on almost every project compared to my male counterparts. A lot of these experiences and sentiments I've seen and heard from others. A lot of talented people get passed over in this department, and opportunities seem based largely on luck. I fought for my rights project by project, but I realized there's just no way I can solve these problems on my own. So in 2022, when I heard from a colleague that the unionizing efforts had picked up again, I was hopeful. I came back and saw the group had changed. The IA had gotten seriously involved, and now there was a plan. Since then, I've been in weekly meetings where I've been trained on how to have organizing conversations, and have had many great one-on-one conversations where I've met and spoken to people in wildly different jobs from my own, learned things that we both deal with and want to change, and things that are completely unique to their experiences, opening my eyes to problems I wasn't even aware of. What I've heard is an overwhelming passion to improve and help one another. It's the first time I've really felt a sense of community in this department, and it's been wonderful. I wholly believe that we are the ones who know this department best, the ones working day after day on set and in post. And having been part of this campaign for a year, I've gained the skills and confidence to know we will be able to make a better career for us all. We know we deserve this. So I want to thank you guys for coming up with us today, and our passion is what's going to make this happen. We are the union. And with that, I'd like to pass it over to Miguel. Thank you.
Thanks, Gabby. VF workers are tired. We demand change. I've had the honor to speak to countless individuals that just wow me every time I speak to them. Just speaking to them, I see how dire things really are in our industry. And I've only been doing this for like 2.5 years, and I see how bad things really are. I've had conversations where people say they don't know if they can afford to work in VFX anymore. They say how unsustainable it is, from turnaround times to low wages to lack of health care, just you name it, a whole bunch of stuff. And I myself have also, I've only been in 2 years. I was homeless for 3 weeks on like a multi-million-dollar show at the same time. And, there's been other people that's also just scraping by, and the studios don't even think, that matters, or if we even deserve a union in the first place. So the thing we want is just the basic same things that every other IATSE coworker has. But so far, it's up to us to make that happen. So I'm pretty sure we all stand united. We all have the same conviction as far as like wanting the same things and fighting for what we really want. If we don't stand up for ourselves, our coworkers, or even the future VFX workers that come in behind us, then all of their, boundless talents and their dedication, all the hours they put in, will be for nothing. So if we push and stand together, then we will be rewarded accordingly. So if if we can all band together and lend, if you can lend your support to us and help us, make this union happen, then every boardroom, every studio, every edit bay, every corner of the industry will hear what we have to say and have no choice but to listen to our demands. And we demand change now. But that's what I've learned after speaking to hundreds of other VFX workers. And I'd like to hand it over to who we have, Kale.
Thanks, Miguel. How's everybody doing? My name is Kale Gilbert. As mentioned, I'm a lead wrangler, occasional on-set soup, currently based in Atlanta, but worked in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and on location in a bunch of different areas. And through my years in the VFX industry, I've seen a range of examples that call for unity, call for unionization, and those cover anything from the everyday minute reasons that chip away at you slowly but surely. Some of which Mark has already mentioned: meal penalties, unpaid overtime, having to simply work around as a non-union person, the union crew's schedules, and to the super egregious, the examples that stick with you for months, if not years on end, that can actually define the course of your career afterwards. One of those experiences for me, I'll share with you, was working my way up a few years ago from the assistant wrangler to the mid-level wrangler level, where one big historical event called the pandemic happened right in the middle, coming right off of a feature film with a full head of steam, and having no resources available to me in the pandemic, except for the ones that the federal aid that everybody else had. And on the heels of that, coming out of that, going through one of the biggest financial hardships that we've had of our time, completely at the mercy of whatever studios would give us. And in this situation, not only did I have to move across the country to find anything that was open, but in doing so, accepted a position where I moved up into a lead role, but in fact, accepted less money than I was previously paid as an assistant. And as soon as that title bump became official, no compensation was given. And there's been this norm for so long about working for your title first, and then slowly but surely getting the wages that come with that. And that is up to the sole discretion of your producer oftentimes. And it's just one of the many consistencies that really punch people in the gut and make them want to leave the VFX industry. So these experiences, from the super egregious to the minute, are what inspired me to get involved with this advisory council, with this organizing effort. And what has been the breath of fresh air is that for the first time in ever, VFX workers finally have an avenue. We finally have a vessel to actually operate in and to function in, to organize. And that comes with the assistance of our IATSE leaders, Ben and Mark, right here. And through these organizing efforts over the past few months, we've connected with a broad spectrum of VFX workers, from client side, vendor side, day player, freelancer, full-time employed, contractor. And the themes are similar across the board. People want portable healthcare. People want options for retirement. They want legal representation, wage protection, collective bargaining, ultimately respect in the workplace, which Mark has said. And they all amount to one single theme, and that is consistency, longevity, sustainability, and ultimately just a future in this industry. And the most depressing thing that we see every week is that as part of our outreach, we see dozens of people sometimes falling out of the industry because they don't feel like they have a future. And that is ultimately the one common theme that we can unite under one banner, as one single community of interest, a community that's long overdue for this representation, because VFX is no longer any sort of a new media or whatever other historical labels that our AMPTP colleagues would like to put on it. And now with the state of the industry as it's been in, WGA, DGA strikes, with the support of IATSE and with the unity of all of you, hundreds of people literally gathering together right now for this forum, we actually can finally achieve with that representation, and we're going to this year. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Maggie Kreismuth. Thank you.
Hi, Kale. You pronounced that perfectly. Hi, everyone. My name is Maggie Kreismuth. So when I was working as an animator in 2000, I had full comprehensive healthcare coverage provided by my employer. So when I made the transition over from animation into visual effects as a freelance artist, I had zero benefits offered to me, even though I was classified as a W-2 employee. And when I attempted to apply for private health insurance, I was rejected for having the pre-existing condition of food poisoning. So for the first 10 years of my career, I worked without any coverage until the Affordable Care Act passed, which prohibited pre-existing condition exclusions for all plans. It was then when I finally saw a doctor who diagnosed me with a chronic disease that required surgery to cure. And even with private insurance, I postponed my treatment for another 5 years due to commitments to work, but also fully aware of the fact that visual effects workers don't have the added benefit of having paid sick leave. Do I choose to go to the hospital or be out of a paycheck for the weeks I would miss to recover from my surgery? So I prioritized the job over my health. And eventually I was forced to check into the ER when I collapsed at my desk answering to work emails. My chronic disease that I had put off for so many years became gangrenous. I was literally rotting away at my desk just to deliver a show on time. And after 3 weeks of recovering from surgery due to complications, the show had wrapped. I had no job to go back to, didn't qualify for unemployment since I had voluntarily left my job due to an illness, only to be stuck with mounting medical bills on top of the high monthly medical premiums I still had left to pay. Fast forward a few years later, I was working on a new job. I had noticed that my supervisor had been exhibiting similar symptoms to what I had. I strongly advised them not to wait on treatment like I did. They consulted with their doctor, went into surgery immediately, and on their return to work in 5 days, thanked me for saving their life. So as a veteran of this industry, I feel it's my responsibility to look out after my fellow colleagues. As visual effects workers, we need to protect each other because no job working on a TV show or movie is worth sacrificing your life for. And to quote Fran Gesture, president of SAG-AFTRA, we're not curing cancer here. It's a collective art form. Your loyalty, hard work, and dedication to a company won't guarantee you job security. So why are we treated differently? Why are we dispensable? It's beyond unsustainable. It's inhumane. A union can't happen without the demand of its workers. So if these basic benefits and protections like paid sick leave, meal penalties, fair wages, better work-life balance, healthcare, portable healthcare coverage matters to you, speak up, talk to each other, and join us in our fight to unionize visual effects workers. And with that, I take this conversation back to Mark.
Thanks, Maggie. Yeah, and you've heard from all these workers just about, I think a very familiar experience to all of us, right? Is working in visual effects, looking, especially if you're on the client side, looking at the unionized coworkers of yours who are getting the benefits and protections that you lack, or on the vendor side, working in a environment where the employer often has what seems like unlimited control over you. And these unite us in these shared structural challenges. I know that for myself, I was in a position being out on the Baltic Sea trying to shoot elements, which ended up exploding in our faces, almost killing us. And so even after that, we don't have a unit hotline or a safety office. Like we were out on a splinter unit alone as VFX unit, totally, isolated, and we had to call the director, who's also the producer, to beg him basically to, let us call off this element shoot, even though we all know, listen, the show must go on. You know how many nights you've put in or gotten no sleep because you're in the DI or trying to, get up, get your notes in, and then get out to set at 4 a.m. for call. But we fortunately were able to convince him to let us, stop our shoot. But then we were trapped for 15 hours waiting for rescue because the seas had gotten too high for the rigid hull inflatable boat to come alongside of the cargo ship we were on. So that was, just an example of how the basic, protections that our colleagues can rely upon aren't afforded to us, and those have real consequences. And what you see in, I'll share with you some of the information we got from our survey, earlier this year, but we see that, when we have both on the client and the vendor side, the majority of people, especially on the client side, not receiving any health care that travels from job to job with you. How much time do you have to go to the doctor while you're on a show, and then you end the show, and then you've got a whole new medical system. And, if you're lucky enough to get healthcare offered to you by your employer, and then a few months later, it's back around again. Whereas our coworkers, and, we have 170,000 members of IATSE, entertainment workers just like ourselves, who have been able to rely upon a portable health care plan which travels from job to job with them, which means that they are able to maintain continuity of care, which means that they can continue to provide for themselves and their family. And ultimately that means that their lives are more sustainable. We also see the same for, retirement and pension. 85% of client-side workers lack any kind of employer-provided retirement and pension fund, as well as the majority of vendor-side workers. We see this with unpaid overtime. The majority of workers, 58% on the client side have reported doing unpaid overtime, and a significant proportion of the vendor side workers as well. And this is not, I know that we're all in this mode of, like we've said, the show must go on, and people are committed and passionate about that, but that people get taken advantage of for their passions in this industry. And when you have unpaid overtime, when you're going home and doing notes, when you're doing emails, doing reviews for free on the weekends, whatever it is, that is wage theft. That is time in your life that's being stolen by the employer, who are making billions of dollars off of our work, and we are not seeing an equitable return. Rest periods too. If you look at, we all know, but we don't, generally receive any compensation for being forced to skip meal. And these are not, lunch is not just something for, a bonus. This is federally mandated legal break periods in our working day, which we are supposed to be afforded so that we can continue to perform our jobs in a safe and effective manner. And we are habitually denied those. And, this really trickles down, because then you have this overall feeling of, like, as we described, a lack of control, lack of voice in the job, and that means people's safety concerns are higher. There's a sense of fear and trepidation sometimes because, you know, we feel, you know, if you see on the client side, you know, the majority of respondents couldn't really say whether they felt completely safe or, you know, completely endangered. It really does depend on so many factors: the producer, the day, the location, the production company, the show. But really, why should it? We should be able to rely on the same safety, protections, and benefits as the colleagues working alongside of us. And, you know, our wages are also, you know, we don't have a voice on our wages. We're all on our own negotiating individually. We don't have a scale established of minimums, which means that people are often, especially when you factor in the unpaid overtime, especially in the entry-level positions, working for what amounts to less than a minimum wage. And even that, you know, can vary on your location. But I think that, you know, both on the client side and the vendor side, you know, our wages are historically depressed, and our lack of a collective voice means that we don't have an effective way to raise these overall as individuals, only together. And, you know, really this comes down to the industry-wide finding, which we found that the majority, almost 70% of VFX workers, and this was almost identical on the client and the vendor side, feel that VFX work is unsustainable in the long term. Now, we all know the roadmaps that have been laid out by these studios for the next, you know, 10 years of Marvel and Disney and Avengers and, you know, Avatar movies, and all the programs are happening, and that's great. But who's going to be doing that work? Because the folks who are doing this work right now, who have the institutional knowledge, who have the experience and the passion and the connections, are getting burned out. You know, folks just don't feel like you can be a lifelong coordinator, or, you know, even a data wrangler, or even an artist, sometimes supervisor. You know, these are people who, you know, are, as you've heard, you know, dealing with real real measurable impacts on their mental and physical health from this work. And because we lack healthcare, because we lack retirement, overtime, turnaround protections, that trickles down, because when the studios, the producers, the executives, they don't have to think about VFX workers in terms of, oh, well, if those folks don't get able to get home tonight, they're going to go on golden hour and then, you know, be more expensive. So we should probably let them go see their families, or, you know, those folks could really use lunch because otherwise we're going to have to pay meal penalties. When you don't have to make those kind of calculations, then that means that we are seeing, you know, this is something that people on the client side are familiar with, this kind of second-class citizen feeling on set. It's a lack of respect that's trickled down from these shared structural challenges and the things that we lack. And, you know, that it through osmosis, you know, trickles out through the lack of respect that we feel on set sometimes for the work that we're doing and the vital importance we play in the modern filmmaking industry. And, you know, I'll just remind people, you know, this is not new. It's been a nearly 50 years since the first Star Wars, and ILM was formed in 1976 in Van Nuys. That's half a century, folks. You know, this is not a nascent industry. This is a well-established part of the filmmaking pipeline, and we deserve the same respect as any other entertainment workers. So let's bust some myths, all right? Like, this is, you know, a conversation, as many people have said, you know, in the questions so far, and thank you. Please write in any questions, and we're gonna, you know, be going through those with the voices of the advisory council as well as our own. But, you know, I think that there's a lot, you know, especially over the course of the last few months of conversations that we've had, but there's a lot of stuff that comes up over and over again. So we would just like to run through, you know, some of these frequently asked, you know, questions and myths, and kind of, you know, be able to tie up some of the loose ends that, you know, might be existing out there right now. So, Gabby, let me ask you, you know, VFX organizing sounds great, but isn't that just going to drive all the work overseas?
Well, I mean, as it is right now, we have absolutely no say in what's moving overseas, with or without our consent. Right now, studios and vendors are engaged to the race at the bottom all across the world, and they're going to keep attempting to get the most bang for the buck for the least amount of money until we come together and demand better. So right now we have no say. So unless we start doing anything, nothing will change.
Absolutely. We have no say on the job right now, and we can win it together. So, this is something that's been in the press a lot lately. Kale, let me ask you, what about AI? What's the plan there? What will the union do for AI?
Yeah, it's a good one to talk about. So AI has become a mandatory subject of bargaining, and if you're concerned about AI, like most of the other issues that we come across, you can only address that concern by forming a union. You as the individual are next to powerless to actually address these issues. Without a union, it's not a mandatory subject of bargaining. And look, AI has become the focal point of a lot of the media right now with the efforts that we've seen with the DGA, SAG, and the WGA. And the fact that that fight is already being fought makes it that much more possible and accessible for VFX union to adopt that charter if that's already becoming a hot topic for for all these other unions. It can be a tendency to think that IATSE or AI is a VFX specific issue. Just running through the ideas in my heads of background plates and generation, etc. No, everybody is concerned about AI, and so to that end, it's a fight that we're all going to fight together.
Absolutely. And yeah, just like you said, AI is a mandatory subject of bargaining. So if you're concerned about AI, get a union, get a collective bargaining agreement. Then we can set boundaries around it, just like we can set boundaries around healthcare, pension, overtime, meal penalties, and safety on set. Here's one for me. All right. This is something that I certainly have, been well ensconced in, but why IATSE, right? I mean, it's sort of it seems like a basic question, but really it's like, well, why aren't we just doing this ourselves? But I have to say, having been engaged in this for many years, from when it was a small underground unit of, folks just organically linking up to where we are today, being very close to being able to, go public with demands for union recognition for VFX workers like yourself. There was no momentum, there was no change until we had the resources of IATSE, right? With 130 years of experience fighting for entertainment workers, being responsible. I mean, IATSE was formed before the Academy. The modern Hollywood system was built on this contract between IATSE and the studios, building a sustainable career path for workers, a path to the middle class, and also being able to generate, of course, billions of dollars for these studios. But with the resources of the IA, we have, of course, a new level of confidence, resources, experience. Ben and his work with the Animation Guild has been just invaluable to helping us create a campaign and a vision for what we can do to use the law, work within the letter of the law to build power for ourselves and win contracts. And this is, the vision now for a new national local, which would cover VFX crafts across the country. This would be about, instilling confidence in visual effects workers like yourself to understand that, you're joining an existing organization with the power to help us. There's strength in numbers and we're stronger together. I think that it's going to be an incredible time for us as visual effects workers to be able to form that community, have a voice in the job, and the union is you all, right? You all are, it's not an outside thing, IATSE here to provide a level of support, guidance, but you are the union, and you all are going to be having an opportunity to vote on the contract, to negotiate in a democratic fashion, to have a true voice in the job in a democratic fashion, which is something that no visual effects worker has ever really been able to say before. So that's why we do feel that IATSE, as well as representing, almost all the below the line crafts who work alongside of us, to stand together, to have a united union crew, is just going to be, being the octane and the engine for our campaign and building our power here. So Kale, let me run back to you. All right. this is great, right? We've been talking a lot about the client-side workers. We have a lot of client-side workers here, right? But what about the vendor-side workers? Like, what is organizing client-side workers going to do for vendor-side workers?
Am I muted? Oh no, okay, great. Yeah, thank you for asking, Mark. Give me just a moment. Yeah, so I spoke to this a little bit in my blurb, right? Vendor side workers and client side workers, through our organizing and through our one-on-one conversations, we have found that there's a lot of shared interests here. There is, there is a lot of shared priorities for change. The survey results and through our one-on-one campaigns, we've ultimately established that there is a severe lack of sustainability for both client side and vendor side. We currently have active campaigns studio by studio in both client side and vendor side campaigns, which seeks to include all VFX workers covered by the NLRA through these shared priorities for change. Strategically thinking in terms of our campaign, there is a lot of focus under the production side of things, because they're, the most familiar with the IA standards, having to work alongside them every day. It's an ugly light shown in their face every day of being reminded of the things they don't have. But ultimately, client-side workers are interfacing with vendors every single day, and we expect those demands for equal treatment to be achievable because, we are a shared community of interest, and we are not doing ourselves any favor by separating ourselves into any pools. We need to be united, and that's how we're gonna ultimately achieve our goals.
Absolutely. And for us on the vendors, on the client side, we know that, we are interfacing every day with sometimes dozens of vendors. And so to have that real world example of those folks who one day were working, non-union, just like all the rest of us have been for decades, and then to have those crews coming together with a united voice, making a public demand for recognition, and then hopefully to have all of you standing in solidarity with them, making a big push. I think that's going to be a powerful example to all those folks getting on the reviews with them and talking to them every day. And, as we've said, this is an inclusive unit to be seeking to be as inclusive as possible, which should, be able to cover all visual effects workers to working domestically covered by the National Labor Relations Act. Well, Gabby, if I can pick on you again, this is great. We're talking about a unit composed of everyone, but what about the supervisors? What about the producers? What challenges or obstacles might there be there?
Right. So in this effort, we want to be as inclusive as possible. So we want to have the largest bargaining unit and include as many people with as many jobs and opportunities as possible. But the National Labor Relationships Act defines those with hiring and firing powers as excluded from being able to be part of a union. So that means producers on the client side will be excluded. There's arguments that could be made for associate producers and assistants, et cetera. That will have to be on a case-by-case basis as we discuss basically the nuances of how that job title works in that capacity at that studio. So there's potential that when we come to the table, there could be some pushback from the studios on they're going to say supervisors have the power to hire and fire, and there's potential to be pushback against that. But we have we expect that, and there's going to be we have an argument on our side that we'll be able to hoist against that. So we're pretty set on what we could include, and it's almost everybody. And that's the attempt for this entire thing, is every single person that can be part of the union will be part of the union.
That's right. We're here to enfranchise workers, to give them a voice, to give them power. The employers, they will try to divide and conquer us. They might try to pull apart different job titles, but let's leave it to them to disenfranchise them. For us, as Gabby said, the producers, based on the language of the National Labor Relations Act, are excluded based on having hiring or firing power. But the door is open for everyone else with the VFX in front of the job titles, besides the editors who have a union. So yeah, we definitely would seek to be as inclusive as possible, but it'll be facts-based and case by case. But yeah, this is a wall-to-wall vision. Maggie, let me ask you something. You've been in this fight for a long time. You've seen it go through various things. I mean, is this the right time to be organizing when so many people are out of work?
Yeah, I mean, like, when is the right time? The right time is always now, right? Like, it's always when you feel there's a problem and when you recognize that there's a problem, when you're working with peers who are struggling, they're, maybe falling asleep at their desks, maybe drinking on their desks, maybe taking substances just to stay awake enough to kind of survive, like the day. And so, for me, the reason why I've been such an advocate for my colleagues in this industry is because I see them suffering. And I'm just tired of it. Like, I'm tired, I've been working in this industry for, specifically in visual effects, 20 years. I've been fighting my entire life because I'm actually a second generation union supporter. My dad is a member of a union. So I recognize, I can see the benefits and protections that he had to allow him to provide for his family. And so I'm a direct result of that. So, it's been decades since there's been so much excitement about entertainment labors. We are joining a movement. It's not just entertainment, it's Teamsters, Starbucks, it's restaurant workers. When I wrote that article back in 2013 about what it's like to be a visual effects artist and what we had to deal with, working these long hours with no portable health care, no option for health care. I was unemployed at the time. And right now I know there's a lot of layoffs happening in our industry. People are out of work. People are struggling to find work. And at the time, I had nothing to lose. And so I agreed, I volunteered to basically write this article to kind of expose like what was going on in our industry. And, I scared to be blacklisted, maybe, but I don't know, my personality is just, I'm not fearful of like speaking my mind. And so when that article was published, immediately, I would say like maybe the day after, I got a call from a VP at Disney who read the article and offered me the job on the spot. So, if you have any kind of fears about maybe, being blacklisted or fears of retaliation, bullying, harassment from your employer, I would say, don't be scared, because if you are a valued worker, if you love your job and you're good at it, people are going to want to work with you. And there are so many people in our industry who want the union to happen. There's so many allies, like you have no idea who is supportive of the union. And this goes above the line, not just below the line workers. So, we don't know where people are at unless we talk to each other. And so when I come to a new job, I always make an effort to get to know my coworkers and just be sensitive and aware of like how they're feeling, how the mood is. It's about reading the room and, start these conversations. I'm very open when it comes to very kind of sensitive topics like the union and like workplace kind of issues. So, it's about being open. It's about being compassionate. And so now is the time, it's why wait if we can make this happen now?
Absolutely. And, you know, as we've described in our method, this is about, you know, working very narrowly within a pool of eligible voters. And those voters would be those who are, you know, actively employed by the studio or vendor that we're organizing. Those people on payroll would, you know, be considered eligible. And this is just how numbers work. But, you know, if there's less people working, then there's less people to, you know, reach that 80% level and, you know, reach a point where it would be going public with our demand for voluntary recognition. So I think that you nailed it, Maggie. This is, you know, there's never a better time than right now. And I think that as you've seen with the, you know, conversation across labor in Hollywood, with the writers and SAG, and of course next year we'll have the IATSE basic agreement up for renegotiation in May, as well as the Animation Guild. And so there's lots of, you know, the conversation will be continuing, but this is also larger than ourselves. We are, you know, looking to be a part of the wave of the future. And this is something that we are all, you know, as individuals realizing that, you know, individually, it may feel like you have little power, but together, when you start seeking a collective voice, when you start learning how to uplift your peers and build power through the, you know, collective actions that we've all been partaking in, then we're able to be so much more powerful, in fact, greater than the sum of our parts. So let's talk about what we are looking for from all of you right now in this room today, right? So as we said, we're going to be in the next, you know, we can't predict the future. I don't have a crystal ball right now, but it looks like, you know, in the next few weeks, possibly even this month, early next month, you know, we'll have groups of visual effects workers going public with their demands for voluntary recognition. And we are counting all of you, you know, who are here showing, you know, we've always said to be you know, an effective organizer of visual effects, you don't need to have, you know, years of experience with labor or, you know, union issues. Or what you really need, the most important factor for success, right, is your empathy and your knowledge of your craft. And you folks, I'm just going to go on a limb here and say, if you're sitting here in this room, then you have those things. And so we are asking you to, you know, this is the time to show that we are a community who has been clamoring for this for years. As I think all of us know, like, you know, this is the refrain over and over again for visual effects workers, that this is something that we've all wanted for so long. And now's our chance to stand with a united voice, stand with these workers and show our solidarity. So again, like, if you are a visual effects worker yourself, this will be your opportunity to show publicly on social media, on Reddit, online, offline, wherever, your local coffee shop, wherever, you know, that we are a community who is powerful, passionate, experienced, and vital. And we are demanding a collective voice, just like the rest of our colleagues. These are, you know, reasonable, in fact, so reasonable demands that we do feel we have a significant amount of leverage to be able to, you know, win this and, you know, win a collective voice at the table for visual effects workers. You know, if you're an IA member and you're here, then this is, you know, our ask to stand with your colleagues who are working alongside of you, who want the same things that you have, right? Who want healthcare that travels from job to job, who wants a pension paid for by the studio, who wants meal penalties so they don't have to work through lunch, or at least get something when they're forced to, who want turnaround protection so that they don't have to leave work and come back 2 hours later, right? And ultimately want respect, and that comes from having a collective voice in the job. So will you stand in solidarity with visual effects workers demanding recognition? This is a question we're asking you, right? Will you post on social media in support of visual effects workers? Okay. Will you talk to your current and former coworkers about supporting visual effects workers as they're going public? And, you know, we're asking you, listen, if you're a visual effects worker right now, you know, from the work that we've done and you've seen, you know, we can carry out a successful campaign in a matter of weeks. But the only way to know that, the only way to get connected through this grassroots, bottom-up organization is to reach out to us, to have a conversation, to learn about what we're doing so we can learn about you, and ultimately connect you possibly with people maybe already engaged in work at your employer, or to be able to connect you with folks looking to start that. So we have, you know, plenty of opportunities for folks to jump in right now. And I think that, you know, there'll be an exciting opportunity in the next few weeks for this public support of solidarity. And then we also expecting lots of folks to want the same, right? We all want a union. And the idea is, you know, that we would be organizing employer by employer until next year in the basic agreement with renegotiations. And then we would ask the MPTP to make VFX a covered craft overall. This would be, you know, the ultimate vision, but for right now, we are working within the narrow letter of the law, which says we can organize unions employer by employer. So that's what we're doing. So we should have a conversation about your employer today. But we have a form here, which we'd like to share. And this is just going to be asking folks to, let me post it actually here in the chat so people can see it. But we'll have, this will be asking you to reconfirm your contact information, your employer, some basic details so we can get in touch with you and mobilize what we're hoping to be, as we said, a solidarity swarm, really an army, like a VFX army to come out in support of these workers. And so we hope you'll, make yourself available on there and we can get in touch with you. But in the meantime, we would also like to have this opportunity for you to go through some of your questions. Kale?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, in addition, I know Mark and Ben put their emails up there, but feel free to reach out to any of the other panelists that you've seen here. The VFX Slack is a great resource. Our names are pretty unique, so we're not difficult to find, and we'd love to hear from you in whatever capacity. So please reach out and let's keep the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we can start going through some of the questions here. I know that we've had an opportunity to answer 56 of them so far, so that's amazing. But of course, people are coming in. So for anyone here who'd like to jump in for any of these, please go ahead. But here was a question. Indy asking how we can better communicate and assist with SAG after in reference to current strike issues, background scans, issues, data collection. Listen, SAG is exercising their voice on the job right now, right? They're trying to set limits around, the use of the images. And I think that for us, the best way we can assist with this is by organizing ourselves, right? To focus on winning our collective voice in the jobs, so that we're able to make the voice of the VFX workers and community heard, to be able to start setting up our own boundaries and being able to exercise our power. And then we'll be a better ally to all of our, colleagues in filmmaking, and be able to collectively, and this is again why it's I think such a inflection point for us to be, part of IATSE as an organization, is we have this strength in numbers. We have an ability to, collectively make, better sustainable work for all entertainment workers. But really, we need to focus on our organizing and what we can do about, building our power for ourselves, so that we can have that voice in the job. So, we kind of hit this before, but, we've got a question. How does the union stop the work from leaving the US? Many of my friends lost their jobs this year to other countries. It's only getting worse. Well, like we've said before, we have no voice in the job right now, and we don't have an ability to set limits around anything. Healthcare, pay, meals. I mean, there are really bread and butter issues that are, uniting us. And obviously one of those is going to be, the fear of outsourcing. But we've seen also that right now the employer has unlimited control over us. And, there's nothing stopping them from outsourcing as much as they want. And in fact, if they could have outsourced us, if it made economic sense for them, if it was something that they thought they could get away with, they probably, could have tried to outsource the whole industry. But there's a reason why it's not. There's a reason why we are still working here on the client side, or you're still working on the vendor side in your shops, because it turns out that workers are necessary, that you have that institutional knowledge, that experience, that passion, those connections that make the company what it is. The company is just a name without you. And so you are the ones who are making this happen. And it turns out, and this is something that Ben has years of experience seeing with animation workers who faced a lot of the same challenges and trepidations about organizing, who had these fears of the work being outsourced or sent overseas or making themselves too expensive. And I think that, those workers, just like us, have felt that those claims lack credibility after a certain point. And in fact, his experience, organizing hundreds and hundreds of animation workers with the same job titles as us, production coordinator, production manager, artists, supervisors, et cetera, PAs, for a lot of these same employers that we work for. And they've been able to prove that you can, in fact, create a sustainable, unionized work environment for, these animation workers while continuing to keep these companies profitable. And that is something that we can, I think, also envision for ourselves. Listen, we all know how much money is being made off of these projects. And we also know that, the vendors and the studios are engaged in a race to the bottom around the world. But by winning a collective voice for ourselves, by focusing on our power, that's how we are able to most effectively create those limits, set boundaries, and be part of that conversation, is by actually having a real seat at the table. So here's a question, how would this affect Canada? And how more so do you deal with Quebec, French language laws? So we have, IATSE has a Canadian team, and just a few weeks ago, Maggie and Kale were part of a forum focused on Canadian organizing. So if you'd like to reach out to us, we could be happy to put you in touch with the organizing team that's happening in Canada right now. Because, for us particularly, we are looking at folks who are covered by the United States, National Labor Relations Act. But this is the International Alliance. And so we interface very closely with our colleagues in Canada. And this is, this is not working in isolation. So there's a much more specific and Canadian focused plan with some incredible organizers there who'd be very happy to talk to you about the specific Canadian things. But for us, we're very narrowly focused on, as we said, winning in a very near future, collective bargaining rights for visual effects workers who are covered by the National Labor Relations Act here. Kale?
Yeah, only thing I'll add to that, Mark, is that, good learning experience during that forum is that there's fundamental differences in the way that Canada operates in terms of unions, is that there's provinces and that their healthcare system is slightly different than ours, which necessitates the different pools. But yeah, large group of people in that forum too, and a very active movement. So if you are interested or know people that are, please reach out.
Yeah. We've got a couple questions, why are producers excluded? Will supervisors be covered? I think we went over this already, but just to be very clear, producers with hiring and firing power under the National Labor Relations Act are excluded, but we would seek to include everyone else and be as inclusive as possible. So the door is open, and we will fight for supervisors, production managers, on-set supervisors, just like we're fighting for PAs, witness cam operators, coordinators, everyone else. And, we have a great question here. Will there be more meetings like this, and how constant will they? Okay, so this might be a good one to leave on, right? It's kind of like next steps. And it looks like the best way to get you all, and this is why we asked for your emails. Thank you for, registering and everything. But this is this isn't for fun. We are here to really build power, to work seriously, and to be able to say at the end of this year that we've won representation for visual effects workers in IATSE, and this is just the start of many more who will be able to rely on those rights as we create a new and more sustainable future for visual effects workers. And just like we said, we're doing it just through brick by brick, one-on-one conversations, and then getting together the people you all, I don't go to church, but I feel like I have been for the last couple of years, because meeting every Sunday with these folks, talking about our shared community, what challenges are facing us, our frustrations, and being able to, come together and work through these together and be able to then create a plan for how to uplift our colleagues. That's a pretty great experience every Sunday. So we are not going to organize through mass meetings like this. We wanted to bring everyone together because we are, as we said, very close to having this public demand for recognition, and we need you all to stand with us as part of this swarm, this army of solidarity. And we want you also to be paying attention to how we got there so that you can do it yourselves. So in order to do that, as we said, vfxunion.org, it says right there, contact an organizer, it goes right to our email, set up a call, have a quick conversation. We could, invite you after that if you're interested in learning more about these skills, just like these folks here have. The VFX Advisory Council meets every Sunday. We would love to have more of you show up, learn these skills, be able to engage. Listen, many hands makes light work. And so, we have no shortage of folks to reach out to. There's thousands of visual effects workers covered by the Act, and we can only do it together. So this is how we're going to be, following up on this, is hopefully having many of you reach out to us and say, hey man, I'm free next Sunday. Let's meet up 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. We can huddle up. All these folks here would be very happy to share these skills or, have a sidebar conversation. But this is how we're doing it. It's not through these big, open forums and stuff like this. This is an opportunity to, clue everybody in on what we're doing to prepare people for the Solidarity Swarm, and also, but to recruit folks like you to be able to come and join us and do the same work. Because I think, and again, stay tuned. We'll be hitting you up in your emails. Thank you for, giving those. So we'll be following up, but we will be asking you to show these support very publicly. And we hope that you all will be very, jealous, for lack of a better term, of the, work that these crews are going to be doing and showing. And hopefully we'll want that for yourselves and your own crews. So that's how we're going to do it. That's our task. And that's what we're asking all of you to do. Is just, reach out, be brave, take an hour or two a week, and in a few weeks' time, we can have a successful campaign, just like the ones you're going to be seeing go public very soon. So that's the model here, and that's the work that these folks have been doing. And I just, would like to publicly acknowledge once again the incredible work, bravery, and dedication shown by all of the members of the VFX Advisory Council, as well as the hundreds and hundreds of visual effects workers who have talked to us in the recent months, because we knew when we started this campaign that we could do this, that we were a strong and active and passionate community. We just needed a plan, and because we have it now, we're close to victory, and it's going to be a snowball around town. So I hope you want to be part of this historic moment. Great. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Maggie, did you want to?
I noticed somebody asked in this question about SIGGRAPH. Will there be reps at SIGGRAPH to talk?
Absolutely. Yes, we will be having an event at SIGGRAPH here in Los Angeles on Wednesday, August the 9th at 5 p.m. That'll be at the JQ Marriott Hotel downtown. It's called the Birds of a Feather event, which is a non-commercial events for SIGGRAPH, but we will be presenting with voices just like ones you've heard today from visual effects workers, as well as some game workers. And the program is titled "Now is the Time. Why are visual effects and game workers organizing unions in 2023?" And I think that you've just heard a lot of what we'll be discussing there. But we also hopefully will have some exciting public updates to be able to share about these campaigns, and it'll be an opportunity to interface, with what we also see as an overlapping Venn diagram of, visual effects, animation, and game workers being the growth industries of the 21st century of entertainment. And so thanks for bringing that up. And yeah, excited to have anyone there. Please reach out if you'd like to attend, and yeah, we can hopefully make that happen. Gabby?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a quick question because I've seen it asked a few times. Where will people be able to find this recording once we are finished with the meeting?
So the plan is to make this a private video, and if you'd like a recording of it, then we'll be following up on this meeting with just some action points via email. So you could just respond to that and say, if you'd like a recording, we'll I think very soon have an opportunity for a lot more public facing and big splashes to get our word out. We have some opportunities, as we've said, to show our public support for these workers. And I asked permission by one worker who made her solidarity sign already, and she said that it would be okay to share here. So I just take a look. We don't exist without VFX. I think that's pretty awesome there. We've got Iron Man, Optimus Prime, and that might be Neytiri from Avatar, but I think that we can all agree none of those people exist without VFX, and this shows how vital we are. So this is exactly what we're going to be looking for people to do on sidewalks, on social media, on Reddit, in your office, wherever. So that's awesome. Yeah, we will be, props to Abby. Yeah, and it's going to be a very exciting opportunity for us to be creative, because we are, and it'll be fun. Great. Well, folks, I mean, I think I'm going to go buy some solid wax chalk and probably start going around, because I'm pretty inspired by that. But I think that over the next few weeks, we'll have an opportunity to be making more shows of solidarity like that. And yeah, please, again, we'll have this video recorded and available. But also, as we've tried to stress over and over again, the most important way that you can help, or that we can push this movement forward together, is just get on the phone, get on the Zoom, quick one-on-one conversation. Hey, where are you working? Oh, you're working alongside of. Oh, okay. Maybe we have a campaign already going, and we could connect you with folks at your workplace, or maybe we would like to start one, and you can learn the skills to reach out to your colleagues and do it. But the only way you're going to be able to find that out is through, picking up the phone and having a quick conversation with us. So it's a simple step, but as we've said, brick by brick, this is how we do it. And we can all be, very proud of the work that we've been doing, and to see the nearness of these campaigns reaching fruition. It is inspiring, and I'm excited to be able to talk more about that in the coming weeks. But for now, just stay tuned. Get your solidarity hats on, because they're going to be getting ready to have a swarm. And this is truly a pivot point. So if you've been waiting for an opportunity to get involved, if you've been saying, well, is this the right, when is this going to happen? This seems like it should happen. It's happening. So reach out today. Let's get on the phone, and we can figure out how to change not only your life, but all the folks around you and coming in after you. So once again, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll be meeting next Sunday. So please reach out if you'd like to see us there. And vfxunion.org. Thanks again to all the panelists. Thanks again to all the attendees. And I know that there were some questions we weren't able to get to, but this would be a great opportunity to have a one-on-one conversation and go through anything that you've got buzzing on your mind. So look forward to having conversation with folks. And this is a historic moment. So it's a great time to be a visual effects worker. All right, folks.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Later.
Thanks for coming.